Alrighty then. So welcome guys, welcome and thank you for joining us. So this is for those who have never been here before and those who don't know. We're the Zim Property Investors, so we're just a community of people who are looking to build our portfolios, learn a lot more about property, and look to do better for ourselves and our families. So we have got the lovely Alfred, who's going to be discussing a bit about his strategies and what it is that he's doing. And he's going to be sharing a lot of information, giving us an opportunity to get an insight of what happens in those big projects and developments that he works on, and also helping us understand how to raise finance. So for the guys that are on here, as mentioned earlier on, please compile as many questions as you can and utilize this time to get as much as you can out of Alfred. And also for anyone who is not available, just get the questions, get the contact details, and have a chat with us or with Alfred directly and see how you guys can help each other. So without wasting too much time, if I can just ask Alfred, are you good?
Yeah, just need access to share slides and then I'm good.
1 second, I'll allow that now. Should be okay to do that now, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being part of this, bro, again.
No problem. Everybody can see my slides, can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, good, we'll go for it. So just a quick introduction, just in case nobody knows who I am. So I am Alfred Dzadey. I am based in the West Midlands. I invest in properties. My main focus is HMOs as a strategy. So a bit of background about myself. I did an aerospace engineering master's degree in Hertfordshire. Coming out of that, secured a contracting job at Jaguar Land Rover, managing projects anywhere between 5 million up to 200 million. But now I am pretty much full-time property investor developer. I like to even call myself someone that's kind of into business because I'm looking at other opportunities as well outside of property based on where I am in my journey. So a bit about what I do in property to be exact. So like I was saying, I mainly focus on HMOs as a form of building cash flow. So when I was starting out, I wanted to kind of get into a strategy that allowed me to yield high cash flow to allow me to then go on to do bigger things. In terms of HMOs, what I look for when buying HMOs, I am literally looking for a residential property where there's opportunity to convert into HMOs. So this could be a 3 to 4 bedroom house with 2 reception rooms. That will generally give you between 5 to 6 rooms, generally speaking. And obviously, I'm also looking at the garden space and the plot of land it sits on to see where there's opportunity to kind of extend on the property, as on the side, on the rear, in the loft as well. If there's opportunity there, that's another avenue to add another room or floor space, I'd like to say. So for me, when I'm looking at properties, I'm mainly looking at where can I add the floor space to be able to add the value, because that's how I get the uplift. My main focus when actually doing the property investing, it's literally raising money and finding deals. If you follow me on Instagram, you see me always constantly raising money for deals. Because again, I want to keep my pipeline full in terms of investors, and I want to keep the pipeline full in terms of deals. So quickly, how to qualify a HMO investment area. So for myself, when I'm looking at any investment area, or even if I was to move to another area, I would look at the demand in the area for rooms. So a good indication is something, if you guys are not aware already, that spare rooms. It's not a true indication of the market. I think it's just a kind of a thing in the air. What's the demand? So i.e. how many people are looking for rooms versus the number of rooms in that area. It's also a good indication of what type of products people put out there. So you can kind of, as an investor coming into that market, know what your competition is to be able to try and get your rooms let as well. For me, I am big on this second point, demographics. So I want to invest in areas where I know people are young professionals, probably people who just started working, looking to get on the property ladder. And therefore, I personally wouldn't invest in areas where there's a lesser, what's the word? People that earn a lesser amount of money, in the sense, these people generally, I don't want to kind of stereotype, but there seems to be a lot more problem tenants when you start going down in rent. The higher your rent is, not to say you're going to get someone, you can have someone still pay £1,000 and still come in and not treat the property good as well. But generally speaking, from my experience, what I've seen is if you've allowed someone to kind of have the cheaper rents, that's where you see people potentially not treating the property as someone who's potentially paying a premium. So the third point is ROI. I think, to be fair, this one's a personal one. So it's a personal target. As an investor, you need to understand what kind of return on investment you're looking for in an investment vehicle or an investment area, or from an asset class in general. So some areas will provide a better return on investment than others will. So you would need to become very clear on, okay, how much money can I invest in this area? So return on capital employed, versus if I was to do it in, let's say you were in London, versus if you were to do it in Coventry, where I am. Generally speaking, the yields are a lot lower in London because of the high value prices there are in London, versus Midlands, where you've got an average, you've got a bit of balance of the two. You still can get a very high cash flow versus the end value of the property, and therefore your money, generally speaking, is working a lot harder. But again, some people are happy to take a low percentage ROI and happy to wait for for them, they see as a bigger goal, the capital appreciation over time. So you've got to become clear on what it is you're looking for when you're looking at investing in a vehicle, in an asset class. I put down local authority. I think this one's massive, and I think people don't do this enough. You need to understand within that area you're looking at investing in, are the local authority happy with having HMOs? What objections do they currently have around HMOs? What's the current negatives around HMOs? I can tell you a few. So for example, in Coventry, the council are trying to crack down on bins and storing bins on the front of the streets, because they feel like one is bringing is ruining the street scenery in terms of over flooded bins, mice and mouses and stuff around the area due to all this rubbish lying around. So they're big on trying to climb that down. So for example, any HMOs, any large HMOs where you're usually having more bins, they are asking, where are you going to store the bins? Can you provide a shed or store in the rear of the property, ideally, without having it on the street, to try and minimize the scenery in front, the front scenery of these properties. Lastly, probably the most important of all of them, strong management. I always say, a property, you can have an amazing property. It all comes down to the management of this property in terms of your lettings agents. So one, are they going to find you the right type of tenants who are going to come in here, pay on time, look after the property over a long period of time? If they're not, your asset is basically, in my mind anyways, it's not doing its job in terms of providing you cash flow, because you only make money from this asset if your tenants are paying the bills. So this bit is, for me, is critical. Without this, you could literally just, not have a performing asset just based on not having a good letting agent. So that's another thing you have to spend time understanding: who's in the market, who are the agents like, how do they find tenants, how do they vet the tenants, what's their track record of being able to get people secured in like ASTs. Like, does it take them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Obviously, some of them will tell you, depending on your property and the finish and the location, that will determine how quickly they can let it out. But these are all, for me, qualifying questions when working with agents to kind of determine, is there somewhere I want to invest? Does it have a strong management in place to allow my portfolio to be managed by these people? And if it is, and I can get literally all these things have to be ticked off. It has to have the right demand, the right demographic, the right ROI figure. The local authority needs to be happy with or HMOs, or at least I need to be able to satisfy their requirements to therefore invest in the area. And then finally, having a strong management in place to manage the portfolio for me. So moving on, a few HMO deals I want to kind of take you through. So this is a 5-bedroom HMO, which I acquired and I converted into a 6-bedroom all-en-suite HMO. This property wasn't residential, like I said in the previous slides. This was actually a retiring landlord. But again, I don't rule out these properties, because again, these are properties where you could potentially have an opportunity, because the person that's selling this property isn't necessarily looking to make money. Think of it this way: this person's had this property for years, they've run it as a HMO, they've had the capital growth, they've made the cash flow over periods of time. So they're not as motivated to kind of sell it for a premium. Obviously, no, obviously they want to try and get their best figure possible for the property, but they've made money. They just want to exit now. They just want to get payday, if that makes sense. So this was agreed at 225,000. We spent 88K on the refurb. This is a back to brick, or majority back to brick refurb. So new everything, new plumbing, new wiring, all over. We got an end valuation bricks and mortar of 360,000 on this one. The rental per calendar month is 3,400, and then the net rental income on this one is just under 1,005. So again, very great property, good property in terms of the cash flow it provides. Just want to quickly show you a bit of pictures about this property. So again, not something amazingly tired. I don't really buy a property that are like falling down or literally breaking apart. People could argue this is a property that's kind of good to go, needs a few touch-ups, new carpets, new paint, and potentially you're good to go with this property. But I know I want to hold this property for the long term. So therefore I want to go in and invest the money on day one to have brand new equipment in there, brand new everything pretty much, to kind of help the sustainability of these portfolios that I'm looking to build as well. Because the more up-to-date the property is, the less potential maintenance issue you're going to have, because you've installed a new boiler, a new wiring system, new electrics, new plumbing. So everything there's new. And therefore you shouldn't have that much of a maintenance problem. Whereas if you buy something that's old, you don't know what's going to come up if you haven't refurbed it to the full extent. So as you can see, we pretty much rip everything apart and start again and create the space that we need within the property, add the floor space where required as well to get the value uplift on the back end. And then in terms of final pictures, this is what you see as the final product. We go for a high-end finish with our products, again, just attract the young professionals I mentioned earlier, and get them wowed, like to have a wow factor once they walk in and want to instantly book a room and not lose out on the opportunity of living in this property. I want to show you another deal. This is a larger one. This is a 4-bedroom property, had 2 reception rooms. The value add, it had a huge garden. Literally, we extended the property, I think, by 5 meters to create a room at the back. We also divided one of the larger rooms on the first floor into 2 to create the 2 additional rooms to make it an 8-bedroom HMO. With some of the rooms in this property as well, we had a kitchen facility within the rooms because it was so huge. We could afford to kind of put a kitchen facility in that room. Purchase price on this one, we spent about 310,000 acquiring it, 120,000 on the refurb. This one was valued commercially based on it having 8 rooms, 8 people. So we got 560 on the reval on this. Rental income on this one is $5,000 a month, and the net per calendar month rental on this one is 1,000, just under 1,000 too. On this one. So again, another amazing property, cash flowing really well. Again, key location. I'm always big on buying in key locations. So again, for me, I invest predominantly in city center locations. I feel like they're the most desirable properties before people start to look outside of those areas. Again, because I'm targeting young professionals want to be in the city. They want to be in the hub where everything is. So again, I'm literally tailoring everything I'm putting out there to meet my demographics, if that makes sense. So that's why I say you have to do that upfront research, understand who your tenant's going to be in those areas, on those streets, and therefore provide a product that satisfy, or a product that they want, to put it simple. So again, just showing pictures, again, tired property, but nothing falling apart. Again, like I said, you could decide you want to put a bit of paint on this, freshen it up, put in some interior designs on this, and this could be potentially ready to go. But again, for me, I go to the full end of it, go back to brick, and literally put my spin on it. And in terms of creating a wow factor, again, for people to kind of walk in. Like I think for us, mainly our kitchens are probably our kitchen communal area is probably the selling point. Once you see the kitchen communal area, you're like, wow, I could see myself here. There's a lot of space. Again, we provide probably more space than we actually need to. Bit of overkill, but again, this is one of the things that people appreciate, and they're like, you know what, we're not just in our box rooms. Not that I even provide box rooms. My rooms are generally large, but compared to other people, they're thinking, well, this is a spacious property I can be in my room, I can chill in the living room, I can do a 50-inch TV in the living room, I can chill here on the sofa and watch some TV. So yeah, we really think about this and think about end users when providing or putting out these type of products. So I want to kind of move on to, I think, a big topic that everybody wants to know about and is always asking questions about, and it's always around raising finance. And it's something I think to start with, people need to kind of work on their mindset. I think even before you kind of look at this slide and think about how do I raise money, I think you need to be someone that believes that someone can give you money or you're capable of raising money. You have to have that mindset. So I think you got to start on your money mindset to begin with, understand how money works, why there's an opportunity, why you shouldn't feel like you're people say you're begging for money, you're asking for money, but you're not, you're providing an opportunity. So it's a mindset shift that needs to happen before you kind of even get yourself out there, putting yourself out there, I would say. But to start with, I always tell everybody, sounds very cliche and very simple, but to be honest, it is simple. I think you've got to follow the process. So you have to tell everybody what you do. You can't expect to raise money if nobody knows you're even trying to raise money or you're in a space which requires money. So you don't even have to tell them I'm raising money. You just got to tell them this deals we're doing. You can start shouting numbers on, it's going to cost me 8 grand to the refurb. Generally speaking, people are going to ask how you're going to do that. If they think that you haven't got the money or whatever, for whatever reason, they won't understand how you're going to go about doing it. That's when you kind of plug yourself in and say, look, I work with people who are looking for a return on their money and they see the benefit of lending money over short or long periods of time to gain a return on that rather than leaving the banks where they're pretty much losing money day by day. So I think focusing on that as a key starting point when starting out your journey, just telling people you're going and viewing, you're looking at buying property, these are the property prices, it's costing about this much to refurb the property. Just saying that stuff alone, people will start to see it. And maybe nobody straight away says, oh, I've got money, I want to invest with you, I want to work with you. But people want to kind of see that you're not just talking the talk. Once they see you start walking the talk, then they start believing, okay, this guy's actually serious. They are going to go in and make this happen. So which kind of leads on to my next point, show everybody what you do, good and bad. So with me, when I was starting out, I was very vocal about what it is I was doing in terms of me going to educational courses over the weekends, like 3-day courses, me going to networking events in London after work. I'd be getting on the train. People would know that I would go to London, be out there till like 11, 12, get back home. And I'd be up again in the morning, very early in the gym and then back in work. So people would see all of this and I'd document this on my social media. So they would see all of this and they were like, Alfred, I see you putting a lot of hours into this and I can see you're clearly serious about making this happen. So when it comes to the time when I actually need money, people have seen me trying to make this happen. And therefore it's more about, does someone like me, do they know me enough? And do they trust me to be able to go away and deliver on this? The next point is keeping it simple. People want to kind of complicate this, I think, as well. When you go on courses or you're in these rooms where people talk about raising money, they tell you to kind of talk them through deals and talk them through how you're going to get the money back and all these. And like, for me personally speaking, I don't use that approach. I feel like that's just opening a can of worms, especially if you're targeting a certain demographic of people, which I will go on to in a sec, who my ideal investors are. But generally speaking, I want to very high level talk about the benefits of them investing money with me and why leaving money in the bank is such a bad idea and how they can go away and even read and get educated on how money works. So yeah, I've even told people to start with go and read a book called Money by Rob Moore. Just Rich Dad Poor Dad, go read these books and just to kind of get an understanding of why saving or leaving money in ISAs or whatever government related or whatever fund is not really the best of ways to kind of grow your funds. And there's other ways out there. So sometimes I even empower them to kind of go away and do their own research. And then for them to come back and say, you know, Alfred, I went and read this, it makes a lot more sense. I see why you're saying what I'm doing doesn't make sense. And then therefore, in the future, being able to close on that. So I don't really go into details of my projects with my investors. I literally very high level, keep it simple. and just talk about the benefit of them investing money with me versus them leaving it where it currently is. The next point is selling through, not direct. So with that, what I mean by this is you don't want to heavy pitch in, oh, I need 50 grand. I want to give you this. So I'm always trying to sell a story in terms of what I have done for other people and how other people benefited. Whether someone's borrowed me money and I've returned the money back, I will showcase that on my social medias as well, just to say, look, people have lent me money. It's happened. They've borrowed over this period of time. They've been paid their interest. They've been paid the initial capital as well. Again, this all builds credibility. So you're kind of portraying yourself in a certain way, which sells to the people watching you. And over time, they keep repeating, seeing this, and they keep seeing that this guy is delivering. They keep delivering, and therefore the trust builds over time. And like you get to a position where I am in this instance where by people on Instagram who've seen my journey from pretty much from the beginning are now maybe a year, 2 years later on, now wanting to invest, or even complete strangers who may only just see my stuff and I've seen what it is I'm doing, wanting to literally give me their money and say, look, I've got money sat there, not doing anything for me. How can we best put it to work? So you want to, over a long period of time, kind of get to that position. It doesn't happen overnight. I didn't just randomly start getting money from strangers. I had to put in the work, show that I am making the right steps, build the credibility over time by showcasing what it is I'm doing and how I'm helping other people who are in the same situation as them, for them to be able to relate to it, and therefore in the future come and invest with me. And I think the last point I would say as well is be confident. It's a hard one. I think when you're starting out, you're a bit shaky, you don't know what to say, you're fearful what questions could be asked to you. But I feel like the more knowledgeable you are, the more confident it is, you are in what it is you're saying to these people. So I feel the more informed you are, the more likely you are going to be able to speak to someone with more authority, more credibility. So just immerse yourself in this world, network like hell, to build that confidence. Again, nothing wrong with practicing with people in your close circle to kind of build up the confidence if that's what you need to do before approaching someone. But I feel as well, you shouldn't ever have to feel that kind of pressure. It should be just literally a conversation with a friend, a family friend, and just saying, look, this is the opportunity available. You're not selling anything, you're just literally telling the story. And if you can tell a story, I think you can come across as confident and can, in effect, sell through, not direct, if that makes sense. Lastly, I want to talk about my ideal investor. So I know people like to frame this thing. For me, I target people. I say target like I'm out there trying to find these people. But what I mean by this is I literally try and keep in contact with these kind of people, in the sense I feel like these are the easiest people to convert in terms of raising finance. So this is someone that's a high earning professional. For me, I found that people that earn a lot of money, upwards of 50 grand a month, it doesn't have to be 50 grand a month, because it could even be someone that's earning 30, 40, but they've been very good at saving from a young age, and they've just been saving and saving and saving. Because I know some people that even just earn even 30 grand a year, and they've just saved from when they were 18, and they've actually amassed a good amount of wealth. I would say 50 to 100 grand just sat there doing nothing, because that's what they've just been taught, and they just thought that's the best way to do it. Just work, very religious with proportioning some money into a savings account or an ISA, and over time they just built up their capital. So I say high earning working professional, just to generalize in terms of potentially having funds available. But I think the habit here is someone who is a saver, which I think I'll go into a few points later to kind of say they are natural savers, people that just literally save money in their bank accounts. Again, I'm looking for someone that's very busy. When I speak to a professional who doesn't have time for me and says, oh, Alfred, I'm really busy, I'll have to speak to you in 2 weeks' time or something. For me, I just know this is my perfect person, because I know they're so busy in their career, focused on their career or family or outside of work as well, that they don't have the time to be doing things outside of work or looking for investment opportunities. So for me, I just know this is a good opportunity for me to potentially do some business with this person. Again, I always target people over the age, or I like to keep saying target. Again, I want to kind of generalize, but people that generally are over the 35 age group have generally already bought a house, they've settled down, they've probably got a family, they're married. So all these big expenditure stuff, buying a house is not cheap. When you buy your first home, you're spending a good 30, 40 grand getting into your first home, after you furnish it and all that stuff. Then getting married, another big ticket item. So in your 20s, late 20s, you're potentially spending a lot of money on these things and potentially are kind of using up your savings. So there's no money left. But after the 30 onwards, I think when you get to 35, you had your kid, you settled, you got used to your expenses, you kind of religious on putting some money on the side. These people generally have money sat in a savings account doing nothing, and they just got a very religious routine of putting money there every month from their paycheck. And again, these are people that I prefer to kind of speak to, because I know they fit my ideal investor criteria. And I think another thing as well, massive family oriented individuals, again, generally speaking, if you're family oriented, generally speaking, you're working your day job, and when you come home, you don't want to do anything but chill with your family, go on weekend trips, take your family out, treat them to a good time. So again, these are all things that I try and have in a conversation with them. Say, look, currently, I don't know what you're doing with your money, but let's say you've got 50 grand sat in the account. What are you currently getting on that? Chances are the answer is very little. So I'll say to you, okay, what would you like to kind of do with your family? If I know the family oriented, like, what would you like to do with your family? Do you travel? And I'll say, okay, so how much does your holiday usually cost you? And they might say we usually spend, I don't know, 3-4 grand on our holidays. Then I'll be like, okay, cool. How does it sound by if you were to lend X amount of money over a period of time to be able to accrue interest, which then affords you or creates that money you need to be able to go on holiday in 12 months time, for example? How does that sound? And most people say, you know what, that sounds amazing. I don't currently have that today as an option. Why would I not? And obviously, if they trust you and they know and like you, they're more willing to do that deal with you, because you're helping them fixing their problem, which is actually spending more time with their family. They're not interested in going and doing more work outside of what they're currently doing for the 9 to 5. They want to focus their time on their family. So if the money's sat there doing nothing, and there's an opportunity where they can trust somebody to go out and make that money work for them, then it just sounds like a no-brainer. Why would you not? So again, this is why I keep saying target. I want to find a better word than target. I'll let Muzin tell me a better word later on. But yeah, these are my key individuals that I like to work with and who I found the most success with in terms of raising finance from. So I hope this has kind of been an insight into who my ideal investor is, how to raise finance, the type of deals I've done in the past, and a bit of intro to myself. But that's pretty much it. If you want to connect with me, I think main places, Instagram is where I kind of spend my time mostly on. I also have a YouTube channel showcasing my projects. So you can check that out. It's my name, all the details are there. My email address is there as well if you need to send me an email. But yeah, guys, that's it. And I'm happy to kind of go through any questions. We've got a long session here. So let's go for it. Let's answer as many as possible.
Awesome. That is brilliant. So we'll if you could just leave this page open for people to just get the information of how to contact you whilst we go through these questions. That was brilliant. Alfred. Thank you very much. So we've got some questions in the chat, and before we go into them, since I'm the host, I get the opportunity to ask questions first. Thankfully. I'm cheating. So I've got 3 questions for you, Alfred. This is based on the presentation that you've just gone through and a few things that I already know of you, just to point out. So firstly, the demographics. You were talking about how you actually identify the type of tenant that you'd want in your type of properties and how that is, helpful to making sure that the property is taken care of. So you mentioned that there's a certain type of tenant ideally. How do you go through getting to know, in the area, this is the demographic, or this is the type of tenant, this is the area that the type of tenant is going to be in? What systems do you use, or is it just based on knowing the area?
Yeah, so no, it's a good question. What I'll do is I'll pick up the phone, call out a few estate agents. I'll look to then mention specific roads. Don't just generalize and say, oh, CV1. CV1 is a massive place, or I don't know, Birmingham, somewhere in Birmingham. You want to mention specific roads in an area and make sure that the agent's familiar with that road. So you literally say, do you know the street? And let them, and keep quiet, let them talk about the street for you. Or say, yeah, it's next to this, it's next to that. Then that qualifies them to know, they know what they're talking about to start with. Then it's okay, who usually rents on that street? Who's the ideal person who'd want to live in that street? What do they look like? What do they want to pay in rent? What do they do as a working individual? If they're working or if they're not working, what does that person do in general? And let them, again, keep quiet, let them do the talking. And you want to do that with several agents to kind of get an idea of, okay, these are the type of people I'm going to get on the street at this price point and with this type of product. So that's how I go about fact finding that.
That is really smart from my point of view, because a lot of us will only look at agents as a way of finding out about the property, not necessarily about the tenant. But that is a smart way of looking at it. Nice one for that. The next question is about on your standards. So this also is based on, you know, the information that you share, especially on your YouTube channel. So for anyone who's never been on Alfred's YouTube channel, just use those details and have a look at the properties that he does. It's just some amazing work. The way that we look at it is there's a good standard, then there's a very good standard, then there's an Alfred standard when it comes to property. So what I wanted to know about the standards that you actually go through. I mean, you already showed some of the pictures there of the befores, and even with those befores, some people would actually rent it out as it is, but you wanted to turn it into something absolutely amazing. So what actually inspires those standards, and how do you get to that?
I think is one, trying to generate the best rents in the city. I feel like people will pay for the premium of things they like or they see that benefits them. If they can see that this is going to add value to them, they'll pay. So in terms of room sizes, we try and go for the bigger rooms. We don't like to have the small rooms. We've had to do some in the past to kind of just make the numbers stack from a financial point of view as well, because I own a business. I am trying to run a business. But I don't really, if I could kind of avoid them at all costs, I would absolutely avoid them. I want to provide massive spaces, provide large room storage space, to kind of give the tenant a better experience in these properties. So for me, I think what's kind of inspired, to put it simply, is just to kind of generate the highest amounts of rent for these rooms I'm putting out, and also to future protect. I believe, I feel like people are needing more and more space within these rooms. So having this space, the luxury feel as well. I feel like it's the council's driving for this, to kind of have better landlords who are providing better accommodations. All new developers are coming out with better accommodations as well. So people are going to very quickly be used to having high-end stuff. So if you're not in that high-end market, you're just going to struggle. You're going to have to work a lot harder to let out your room. My agent says, Alfred, your properties are the easiest to rent. Like, I don't have to do anything. I just have to stick the pictures on, and the leads just come through. Like, once it's like, if the product is there, it's just an easy job. Like, he doesn't even have to sell it. Like, you just walk in, keep quiet, let the tenant walk around, and the house will sell itself, basically. Whereas some houses where if the rooms aren't done, or the property in general is not done to a good standard, then you're having to try and literally convince the person why they should be in this property and why they should rent this room off you. Do you get it? So that's the vision behind that as well.
No, I definitely see that. With some of the pictures and the videos that I see, I just get jealous of my own house, let alone renting out a room.
Literally, I'm providing better accommodation than what I currently even live in myself.
I know what you mean. But nice quality. All right, the final question from me before I go into the chat, just to remind you guys, if you've got any questions for Alfred, please just drop them in the chat and we'll just go through them and ask some questions there. So the last one for me is the correlation between personal branding and raising finance. So you kind of touched on that, and how you just from day dot, you talked about what you were doing, whether you went to a training course, whether you've gone to a viewing, everything is just put in on social media, telling people what you do and building your personal brand. How does that correlate with being able to raise finance at the same time?
I think it's massive, and I'm so glad I started kind of getting myself out there prior to COVID happening, because COVID was kind of, for me, was actually a blessing in terms of I had to accelerate. I had opportunities to accelerate my journey in terms of my investment, because I got very kind of focused on building my personal brand. So I was documenting a lot more than even when I initially started out, because we weren't able to meet people in person. So the only way of form of communication is through social media and literally showcasing what it is I'm doing and what I'm up to. So for me, like literally, I think maybe there's a bit of credit due to me actually maybe showcasing some stuff as well at the beginning stages to kind of help build the credibility to say Alfred's gone from someone who's working to wanting going on seminars on the weekend, doing viewings. Now he's got some projects, he's delivering on the projects, and then coming into social media platforms and kind of putting that stuff out there even more. That helped with strangers are now approaching me to say, look, how can we work together? What can we do? We've got some money here. How can that work? So for me, social media has been massive. Without that, like, I don't think I would have been able to raise money, especially during lockdown where I couldn't meet people face to face. I have met investors or raised finance and people I haven't even met to this day through social media. I've used the money, paid it back to them, and still haven't met them to this day. So for me, it was massive, and I feel like it's what helped accelerate my journey as well. So I couldn't thank it enough, and I would always kind of tell people, don't be shy. I think it's a mindset thing. People feel like, I think, especially people have this thought process of, oh, if I put my stuff out there, many people think I'm one, maybe I'm showing off, or two, I'm just putting too much of my business out there. But I always say you create your own opportunity, and I strongly believe in putting stuff out there, because you just never know who can help or who can point in the right direction, or who can say, I'll check this person out, or who could even share your stuff to someone else who might be interested in working with you. So I don't shy away. I don't try and hide anything, whether it's good or bad. I'll put anything out there. Again, the bad stuff actually helps build my credibility, because it shows that it's not all rosy. Things do go wrong, and I'm able to resolve them and move forward with that. So it's, for me, it's even a bonus. Like, why would you not? So if you're in that negative mindset of, oh, why am I putting my stuff out there? Why should I show it? There's benefits of doing this. I have raised over $500,000 through my social media platform, and I'm continuing to raise money just through Instagram, and obviously some on LinkedIn as well. But easily, like, without that, I would never have raised that. Like, I wouldn't have done the deals I've done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm glad it's coming from someone who is a serial fundraiser, the way that I look at it. When we talk about how important it is to actually be present on social media and let people know what it is that you're doing. And people can't help you if they don't know what you need. And the best way to let them know what you need is to just go out and tell them what you do. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. Just go into the chat. The first question is from Tabo. Tabo, if there's more clarity required there, if you can just unmute yourself. But the question is, on raising money, do you provide an investor pack or to your potential investors?
Yeah. So again, when you go on courses, just the first thing you're taught. So I think this strategy is taught to kind of create clarity and for you to kind of have something to showcase to people. I'm actually now against that idea. And the reason, and I can boldly speak about it, is because I've spoken to hundreds, no exaggeration, hundreds of people. I've sat in so many investor meetings. I've spoken to so many people, so I can really say what works. Well, I can maybe say what works for me. But what I have seen work for myself is that people that you send these documents to, one, generally don't tend to read these documents, and even if they do, they kind of just, oh yeah, it's all right. But that's not really the feedback I'm looking for. So for me personally, what I find more beneficial is having a face-to-face conversation, because I feel like you want it, for me, if someone to borrow me money, I need to build rapport with that person. I can't build rapport via a document. Yes, the document high level kind of gives them an indication of what I'm looking to offer, but if anything, I feel like that's more selling. I know people say give the document and you're selling through and not selling direct, because you're asking them for their opinion on the document. But it's just, I think people just are so busy with their lives, they couldn't care less about what it is you're doing or writing in this document. That's the honest and blunt truth. If someone can tell me different, but that's been my experience. I don't think I've ever sent, I have never sent someone a document, and based on the document, they said, Alfred, I want to lend you 50 grand or 100 grand. It's always been me speaking to that individual, getting to know them, getting to understand what their problems are in life at the moment, where I can add value to them and help fix that. That's where the business happens. So for me, a document doesn't do that, and I don't do that. I have one, and I don't even use it. I don't even know where it is. It doesn't work for me, but not to say it won't work for you. But again, I've seen people ask for these documents and I just know you're a time waster. And I'll put it into context as well. So imagine someone, let's say, messages you or they see something, or you're even putting a post out about raising finance and they were like, oh, do you have a document that kind of details this in a bit more detail? I generally, literally, I kind of just throw it back at them and say, okay, thanks for the interest. Thanks for wanting to know a bit more about the project. But this, I don't have something like that to hand. Even though I do have it to hand, I just said I don't have it to hand. And I do say, look, this is an opportunity, to put it very simply, this is an opportunity to kind of get a better return on your money. So if you're interested in lending money for a short or long period of time and happy to get a range of returns anywhere from 6 to 10%, then that's something we can talk about in detail. Obviously, ahead of that, I need to see some proof of funds. And generally speaking, and some people say, oh, but we don't know what it is you're talking, like what it is you need the funding for. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. You don't actually need to find out what I'm using the money for on a detailed level. You need to obviously have an idea of what I intend to use the money for. But I'm very vocal about that. I'm very open to say, look, I'm doing these projects here and there. So, the capital being used is being used to acquire property or refurb property. So that's as high, that's literally as much detail I want to give to an investor who wants to potentially work with me. Because I always say, look, if you want to go based on numbers, are you happy to also go and based on if I don't perform, I'm not liable to that money as well? Nobody's going to say yes to that. So how important is it to kind of know the ins and out of a specific deal, especially if you're borrowing the money for 12 months, where in my case, I'm in the project for 3-4 months and on to the next one. So the money would have gone through 3-4 projects. So there's no benefit on talking about a specific deal. So people that come in and generally ask this stuff, I just know they're not ready to invest. They're just here to fact find and waste my time. So I'm very blunt. And like I said, I've been through so many times, like I've seen everything. There's no question you can ask me and an investor's set up that I couldn't answer or haven't heard. I've seen it all. There's nothing I just know, literally from a message, from the way you reply back to my messages, I just know if you're about this business, you're about to do business with me or not. And it's very, very clear to me. But again, it comes through experience. So the more you do this, the more you can tailor the way you approach people or how you handle people. But I hope that answers that.
Do you know what? I've actually heard you talk about this before, and I actually share the same opinion. I found that quite interesting when I heard it come from you too, that in all investor packs that I've ever sent, I've never been able to raise finance from people that requested. I've always ever raised funds from people that actually speak to face-to-face, or the best that you can, which is a Zoom face-to-face, where you can actually speak to someone, they get to build rapport and they want to work with you and they send you the funds. Investor packs, they haven't worked for me either. So I can't say they don't work. They just haven't worked for me either.
Let's be bold. It doesn't work. Well, no, of course it does. I think investor packs work. So I think the idea came from accredited investors who normally read these investor packs to then literally decide based on investor pack whether to chuck money in this deal, yes or no. But these are accredited investors. They're literally out there looking and reading investor appraisals all the time. So just literally, they will read a document through a firm, an FCA accredited firm, and they'll read a document. If they're happy with the investment, they are chucking whatever, 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is at that investment opportunity. So that's where the investor pack comes from. But I think on a personal base, nothing beats that. You don't need to be doing an investor pack. Conversation, building rapport, that works much better. And we're not looking at working with accredited investors just yet anyways. When starting out, I wouldn't target those people.
Absolutely. Completely agree. The next question I've got for Paulina is, how can I learn to compile or write an investor pack if I get to a position where I need one? Where would you recommend she goes for that?
I would try not to write one for now and try building relationships with people. So I would actually advise against it to start with, just simply because if you kind of want to go based on what I've just said today in terms of your ideal investor, these people are so busy, they don't have time to read a document. So your opportunity here is trying to get in front of this person and have a genuine conversation about what help they need, where they are with their finances at the moment, and see the areas where you can add value to them. That's where the value add is. There's no value add in them reading the document. So I wouldn't invest that much time and energy into creating this document, compiling it. If you really want to learn about it, I'm sure there's something probably on, I don't know, YouTube somewhere. I don't know. I actually don't even know. But in essence, this document is talking about who you are as an individual, what's the strategy, what does an ideal deal look like for you, what kind of funding are you usually looking for, also what kind of returns are you offering to these investors for the level of amounts they're borrowing to you, and kind of literally detailing all these things for a pack. So it could be like a 5 to 10 page document. Again, like I said, if it's a 10 page document, given it to a busy professional, they don't have time to even see you. So how are you then to sit down to read a 10 page document when they want to spend time with their family? You know what I mean? There's no motivation to read that document. Do you get it?
Yeah.
You can only truly get a response from them if you're face to face having a conversation, a direct conversation with them. So that your objective is to get some time with this person and speak about the opportunity. That's when they will tell you they're intrigued. And if they want to see some more details, then they'll ask for the details. But I'd want to answer the question there and there. I don't want to say, I want to send you some documents later on, because again, I know they're not going to read it. They're not going to have the time to read it. So let's discuss it now.
Yeah. Thank you.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much.
No worries.
Awesome. Next question is from Josh Sullivan. I think it's a brilliant question, by the way. I know Josh is right next to a sleeping baby, so he might not be able to talk. The question is, how long did it take you to transition from project management job into property once you knew that was your objective? What would your main advice be to someone starting out that journey?
Yeah, very good question, Josh. So in my case, I didn't get the luxury of transitioning smoothly. I think I was in the corporate world for just under 5 years. During that time, I think year one of working, that's when I wanted to I enjoyed my first year of working. I still enjoyed it all the way through. What I mean is I started to seek or desire more income. I wanted to create more wealth. And that's what kind of got me exploring, okay, what are the avenues of building wealth, and doing my research. Remembering that property was something I talked about at uni. I wanted to acquire property maybe once a year, or just buy it slowly over my career. I think what triggered it for me was when I started to look at, okay, how can I earn 6 figures in this corporate world? And me having to find out that, look, I'm gonna have to build 5 years to 10 years worth of experience and become a senior project manager to be able to acquire that level of wealth. And I'm like, why would I wait 5 to 10 years? There's surely a quicker way of doing this. So in parallel, the money I was earning, I was literally reinvesting back in myself, investing in my education and mentorships to allow me to get more wiser, more confident, and build my money mindset, work on my personal development to allow me to go and invest in property. Because I always say property is not just about buying property. Like, you could just not just about buying property. There's a lot of mindset, personal development stuff to deal with as well as part of your journey. So that's what I focused on in parallel with working my 9 to 5. I think I bought my first project and literally my contract was terminated, I think like a month later. So I was then thinking, okay, well, I could either go back to flying for another job, a contracting job elsewhere, or literally focus on building this property portfolio. I have the knowledge, I have the network, I have the team. So let's just get on with it. So that I literally took the leap of faith and said, you know what, no benefit of me going back and applying for a job. And don't get me wrong, it was a scary moment. Like literally, I think that moment pushed me to literally create things and find a way to make money, literally. Because imagine going from like $5 grand a month to zero, literally zero. I was literally less than a couple of weeks, and literally no income, no form of income after that. So it was a hard time, but I used that to my advantage and made it work, and literally acquired the next deal, raised the finance, and just kept doing that, kept replicating that process. But I think what helped was me over time getting educated, building a network, surrounding myself with people that are doing this or transitioning as well. Because I did, to be honest, have a target of wanting to leave work. In that year, I think I lost my job in March or February, whatever it was, not March. And I was hoping to kind of leave that work environment in November. But the honest truth is, I don't know if I ever would have, because it was an easy job, very not demanding at all. I could kind of do that and the investing stuff in the background because I was very leveraged. I had a team in place, construction company to manage my refurbs and stuff. So I don't need to go in on site once a while. So I'm not really involved. Like once I've got a deal and I've got the funding, that's it. The team kind of then runs with it. So that's how I kind of, I wouldn't say transitioned. I think I was forced into that world and I just made it happen. But I hope that kind of gives you an idea of how I went about doing it.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I think it's interesting, yeah, that you said kind of you were almost forced into the situation, and then necessity is kind of like the mother of invention there, isn't it?
Exactly.
You just got to get on with it.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a similar position now where I'm in like a comfortable role, and you know, but it's about having that ambition, isn't it, and wanting to go further. And I think sometimes you've just got to throw yourself into it and not worry too much about the consequences, because you won't know how it will go until you try.
Yeah, and I said to myself, look, Alfred, what's the worst case? You don't, okay, you struggle. You can always go back in the market and apply for another job. Like that's always an option. Like it's just there. It's a guaranteed, you can, like, not guaranteed, but you've got an opportunity to go and like make ends meet if you need to. Even if it meant me going to work in, I don't know, test, I don't know if I was struggling to, if I needed money, whatever, I would go and do what it takes to, do you know what I mean, get that money in the pocket. Survive. So I think I'm someone that thrives off pressure as well. I feel like before I do really well under pressure. I've had challenges where I've had to raise money last minute on the week of completion, odd 120 grand. I've just made it happen. I've just done wherever it takes, made the phone calls, the difficult conversations, got myself out there and made it happen. So I think I don't shy away from pressure, to put it simple. I think it helps me do the things that I probably wouldn't have done if I was in that situation.
Yeah, much appreciated, mate. Thank you.
No worries.
That's brilliant. Nice one for that question, Josh. Brilliant question. The next question is from Tabo again. When raising finance, what type of security can I provide my potential investors? Again,
another thing I like to keep very simple. And again, I think it helps speaking to the right demographic of people, the right type of investors. I don't like to even call them investors. I like to call them working professionals, because that's what they are. So the people that I'm speaking to are generally speaking about having some money, wanting a return on the money. I am then kind of saying to them, look, there's going to be a loan agreement in place that stipulates what the terms are, the repayment plan, the default, what happens in the form of the default. So for them, that's their security. It's legally binding. It's like taking a personal loan from a bank and you signing the document which says you're liable for this money, blah, blah. It's similar to that. So they're very welcoming of that idea. There are some that are a bit more savvy and know a bit more, and therefore are asking for the first charges and the second charge on properties, or some form of legal charge on the asset. And I say, look, it's not something I've ever done before, and I don't really, not something I offer as well as a form of security. All I offer is a loan agreement. And again, I'm happy to walk away. And I think in the investing world and offering opportunity, you need to be comfortable with walking away. Just because I've had people send me £1 million statement, a 500K statement, and they are asking for an arm and a leg in terms of security. They want to have this, they want to have that. I'm like, look, if you're not comfortable lending a lesser amount, for example, to be able to do it based on a loan agreement, then literally there's nothing I can do for you. There's nothing I can do to help satisfy your what's the word? Handing the objection. So the objection that they have. And therefore, this literally is not going to work. So I'm happy to kind of say we'll call it a day. And unfortunately, it's not something we can move forward because clearly I can't satisfy your requirement. So I'm very, very bold about it. I'm happy to walk away. I don't care how much money you think you have. I don't come from a place of where I feel like I'm asking you for money. I come from a place where I'm offered opportunity. If we can come to an agreement that both satisfies our requirements, then great, we do the deal. If it doesn't, then we just walk away. It's as simple as.
Oh, wow.
So to answer your question simply, it's a loan agreement which stipulates the loan amount, the duration of the loan, the return they're receiving. It has my bank details, their bank details, their home address, my home address, the details about ourselves personally as well. And any repercussions for any defaults, late payments, all that's stipulated in the loan agreement. And that's sufficient. It's like anything you do about a personal loan.
I think for anyone who's writing notes, that is worth noting down. Don't come from a place where you're asking for money. Come from a place where you're offering an opportunity. I love that. Love that. Right. Hopefully that answers that question, Tabo. The next question is from Tabo again, which is, you mentioned about selling through, not direct. how can one achieve this on social media without breaching FCA rules?
Yes, so FCA is a big topic. Everybody talking about raising finance through social media. I think it's a bit of a gray area in terms of what they're asking for, but the whole principle around it is to kind of protect people who are not in the investing world from potentially putting money to something that does not perform, and therefore they lose their money, and they're really then hurt by this as well. So I don't personally, I try and, so there's rules around, for example, you can't say, oh, we beat the banks, or I offer a higher return than the banks, or, so I try and keep it very, very vague. I say, look, I'm looking at raising some funds for my next project. Anybody who's got funds available, readily available, and wants to put it to work, send me a message. So that's not talking about returns or anything. It's just me just stating out, literally telling you what I need, which is I'm looking to raise funds. And if you have money sat there and not doing anything for you, you know, you want to speak to me. There's not even talking about investing. There's no word mentioned about investing. I'm just saying I'm looking for funds. That can be anything. And obviously then if you're interested in wanting to discuss it with me, then it's on a personal one-to-one basis. I'll have to qualify you in terms of how much money you have, how much you invest in, bank statements to kind of show the source of funds, all that stuff. But I keep it very, very high level. I don't go into returns. I don't go into me offering better opportunities than others or whatever. It's literally, I'm seeking to raise funds for my project. Anybody who's got funds sat there, ready, available, and is interested, send me a message.
Yeah.
Keep it very high level is what I'd say.
I think that's important, to be as simple as possible without revealing too much detail, and then you can qualify them on a one-to-one basis to understand whether they're an educated investor or not, who knows what they're doing. But yeah, that's a really good question there, Tabo. Thank you for pointing that out. Next question is from Sheng-Yi, saying if you want to unmute yourself and confirm if I'm reading this right. So when drawing up your contracts with your investors, do you engage a lawyer to tie things up and ensure not just transparency, but that the investor doesn't lose out?
Yeah, good question as well. Like I said, I've spoken to so many people, so everybody's different. I have a loan agreement, which is technically from a lawyer. They're called Rocket Lawyers, an online firm where you can get a copy of a loan agreement. A loan agreement isn't a unique document. It's a standard document that is produced by solicitors all the time. Some of these firms just have this document readily available. All they do is stick your name and their name on there and agree the terms and update it for you. They can have their firm's header on the loan agreement. But generally speaking, I've only ever had, I think, one or two investors want to use, one investor who's wanted to use their own solicitor because they had a solicitor friend who could form up the document without charging us for it. But again, if an investor said they wanted to kind of go for a solicitor, doesn't bother me. If I meant me paying I don't know how much they're going to charge to get document sorted, and that means them investing with me because they feel more secure in doing so, then that's fine as well. So for me, I've always used this document from Rocket Lawyers. You can Google them, you can get a loan agreement from them. And that's been sufficient. I haven't had to go for a solicitor, but I've had one investor ask to go through it, their solicitor friend. But I didn't get charged for it, just a friend who was happy to do it on their friend's behalf, basically.
Thanks, Alfred. Do you mind just put that name there on the chat page? I can hear properly.
Yeah, Rocket Lawyers. Oh, it's caps. Oh, I mean, I did. Rocket Lawyers. I think just type Rocket Lawyers loan agreement, I think, and Google, and it should direct you to their website. And I think you might have to sign up, but it's free. Like, I think you can cancel within a certain time frame, and you'd have got it for free, basically. So you just have to register to get access to the document.
Brilliant. I'm just gonna ask Chrissy to unmute. You raised your hand. Are you there?
Yep.
Hey, Chrissy.
Hi, Alfred.
You all right?
Yeah. I don't know if my camera is on. Can you see me?
Yeah,
If my camera is on. Okay. I think you've answered the question I wanted to ask. It's just because I've got a few investors I'm working with, And one of the investors I'm currently working with, she wants us to start buying from next year, doing buy refurb refinance from next year. So I just wanted to know, do you sort of get our solicitors when signing a contract with the investors that you knew, but you've answered the question? And it's quite good as well that you've actually that you did mention about the investor pack. All the investors that I've currently got, I've never had to send them a pack, and they've never asked me if she sort of funded the deals that we've taken on. So it's quite good to know, like, you not necessary that you have to get or investor pack or send them an investor pack. So it's been really good knowing that.
Just a question.
Yeah.
What's the structure where you say you and this investor are going about buying property from next year? But is it a joint venture partnership, or is it they're lending money to you or trusting you to go away to put money to work? Don't really care about the deal as long as you provide them their initial capital plus their return over a period of time, they're happy.
We actually JVing.
Yeah, so be careful. So that's a complete different thing in total. So when you're joint venturing, you need to have a document which should be drawn up by a solicitor, has a term. If you're in a company, so again, shares or shareholding agreement, was it has a terms? Has a terms? Can't remember all these legal jargon, but you need to put a document that's in place which kind of stipulates what happens in an event of maybe the deal doesn't perform as well as you liked, or your investor wants to buy themselves out. So you got to look at all these things. It's not just about one guy bringing the money and you doing the work. There's a lot of joint ventures, so you need to have a joint venture contract in place that agrees ahead of anything negative happening, what would be the solution to that event happening. So you protect yourself, and obviously the investor as well protects their interest as well. Because if you can't kind of hash that stuff out day one, when things go left, because it's all good. Don't think of, I wouldn't even talk about in the case where things go great, because when things are going great, nobody has nothing to say. Is when things don't go to plan. So let's say you agreed you're going to do a project in 6 months, but now it's taking 12 months. Your investor gets unhappy because they're like, well, you said 6 months, now we're 12 months in, they are not making any money, you're not making any money. And maybe they want to pull out, they don't want to do this deal with you anymore, then it's messy. So all these things, I think you have to address day one before getting into bed with anybody. It's like a marriage. You've got to know the person really well. You've got to understand how the person performs when things go left, like when things don't go your way, how they react, what they like under pressure, what they like to work with. You're not going to know this, but having these conversations ahead of getting into joint venture partnership with this person will give you an indication of if there's someone you can work with. I don't know if anybody else wants to add any bit to that, but I think that's a very key point before jumping in bed with someone on the deal.
So were you advised for me to use a solicitor before signing a contract with them, or just use it?
100% you need, if you're going to create, are you going to create a company together and buy within that company?
At the moment, we're just currently renting, not buying, but from next year, she wants us to start buying together. So we'll probably
so you'll be setting up a company, you will probably have 50% share ownership and they will have 50% share ownership, or it depends what it could be different. It could be a different structure. There could be a non-exec, so less than 25% in the company, you own 70% of the company, but you structure the profit shares differently. There's so many ways of structuring a joint venture partnership, but that will all be stipulated in your, I can't remember what document's called, but there's this document that stipulates your shareholder agreement profits, as well, any agreements based on events that would happen, how you guys would act. Would you have a mediator in the middle for any disputes that happen in the future? Who is that mediator? Is there a solicitor that you guys are both happy to use as a mediator to resolve any conflicts? These are things that need to be stipulated. If you don't, then it's like it's a he said, she said thing, and you're going around in circles, going to court to resolve the matter because you haven't put these conversations in place.
Is it the memorandum of association?
Yes, well done, Muzi.
I'm picking it from a message that Otitis just put on the chat. I'm not going to take credit for that.
Yes. So so it's mad. I think that's mad. Yeah. So that as well, you need to. But again, the solicitor will talk you through all the documents you need to have in place for a joint venture partnership.
Okay.
But you need
When you're renting as well, get all the solicitor when you're renting the properties, also JVing with the person.
So again, you're doing this for a business, I'm assuming. How are you renting? Is it like a rent to rent?
Landlord's property, we're not buying it. We're just renting it off the landlord. And then
Yeah, so again, that partnership, that company structure you've created, it needs to kind of say what's happening with the business, who's doing what. Because so you've got in this partnership with this person. Let's say for whatever reason you're pulling more weight in this journey, so you're doing all the work, but this person now technically still has 50% profit share because you're in a company, so you can't deny them of that. But you're the one doing all the work, and the agreement was for you guys to both do the work, but you're now feeling like I should get 100% of the profits because I'm doing all the work and they're not doing anything. Then what happens? You can't just start saying I'm not giving any of the business money anymore. You're stuck. You have to give this person, if they go to court, they win, because there's nothing that says you guys, based on performance or whatever, can't split the money differently. So there's all these nuances. I think joint venture partnerships, you got to get yourself get some serious advice before doing any form of joint venture partnership. It could be a good relationship, it could be maybe nothing big, or maybe it's a small thing, but it's just things happen, man. It could even be like the person that you're working with doesn't want to do this anymore. In that event, what happens?
Yeah.
So that's the point. It hasn't been discussed. You don't know what that outcome is. So they could leave the business and still be entitled to half the profits, or they can not do any work. You do all the work, but they're still entitled to half the profits.
I've got just a normal JV agreement that we're gonna we've written post stuff in place, but I'm quite glad that you said this. I think getting a solicitor will really help as well, especially when
it doesn't even need to. I guess I say get a solicitor because solicitor will even bring up more things they need to be concerned about. So, for example, if they'll do the extreme stuff. If you died, who does your money go to? Who's your beneficiary? So all these things, who's your next of kin, they'll take it to another level. So I'm saying the very high level stuff. The solicitor will even bring up things that I haven't mentioned now. So the solicitor just allows you to kind of see the full width of what you should be thinking about as a partnership. So if you haven't done that already and you guys are looking to do bigger business and do more together, which sounds like you're going to grow, then I would say get something in place that covers all these scenarios and these events that could potentially happen. Not to be negative, but it's for your best interest. It protects both of you.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank you very much. Quite helpful sharing this, just knowing what to put in place.
No worries.
Awesome. Thank you for the question, Chrissy.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. Sibu says, really great insight, Alfred. Thank you very much for putting this together, Muzzy and the Zim property investors. You're most welcome. Shengi says, do you inquire with the council first on a potential for HMO before purchasing, in case the area is already flooded? I'm assuming this could be to do with Article 4. Also, what's the best platform to use to source your properties?
Yeah, I'm going to go back because that's a heavy loaded question. Who asked this question?
So this is Shengi's question. So do you inquire with the council first before you actually go in to buy?
So let me answer that question first. So simply inquire through the council. If some councils are great at responding back, so you can literally call the council and they'll answer your question. Some will not even give you a second. Some you can't even contact the councils. It's just a no. So all we can do is go onto the council's website and kind of see their rules and legislations, what they want to put as a whatever, what they want to put in terms of properties in that area. You can look at the local development plan. Again, it's a bit more advanced thing, but on the council, we can type in, let's say, Coventry local development plan. It will probably shortcut the link to you to find out what the local development plan is. So in this document will state what the council are looking to achieve in the area. So you might locate areas where you want to add more accommodation, more residential accommodation, where you want to provide more commercial units. It will give you the idea of what they want. Also, another good place to look at as well is the planning portal. People don't do this enough. When looking at larger HMOs, you want to go and look at this area in terms of HMOs, what's been approved, what's been rejected, what are the reasons behind rejecting them, what's the reason behind approving them. Because again, this will give the blueprint as to what the council is looking for in these areas that you're looking at investing in. So that's what I would say to that first quick bit. What was the next thing after that?
in one is simply, what platform do you use to find these property?
So yeah, most of my stuff has come from Rightmove, Zoopla as a form of platform. I think during COVID, I've had to be creative in the sense the market's been so hot, with people having money and therefore being able to, in a position to buy property. Obviously, the government incentives as well, flooding the market with people wanting to buy. So I've tried Facebook Marketplace. That's not going to work everywhere, but there could be opportunities where some people want to sell privately. They want to go through agents, and therefore they put it through Facebook Marketplace, hoping someone's looking over there and was good buys through that. I've just literally acquired a property, yeah, which what the lead was through Facebook Marketplace. So that's another place you can kind of look, just keep an eye on from time to time, see if anyone's trying to sell privately. For me, my objective with these on the market deals, I want to try where possible to get in front of the owner, to be able to, I know if I'm getting in front of the owner, I'm doing a deal, because I will ask the pain points, why they don't want to sell, what kind of time frame they're looking at, and kind of formulate a solution as I ask these questions, to then give them a solution that solves these problems that they've just told me, and therefore closing the deal. I don't think I've ever met a vendor and not done a deal. I'm actually thinking, I don't think I have. If I've met the vendor, we've done the deal afterwards.
100% results in every vendor you meet.
Yeah, so I know if I meet the vendor, this is for me to lose, pretty much.
Nice.
Alfred, so we are saying that you have a conversation with the vendor. If you've seen or you viewed the house on Rightmove or Zoopla, my assumption is that there will be an estate agent in between.
Yeah, so a little trick here. So that there are these companies that do these online viewings, or online, they're like online estate agents, don't only have a physical office. And therefore, so for example, Yopa, I think it's Yopa, Purple Bricks, these are all online agents, and they don't have an actual office where people kind of go in and sort of viewings and stuff. So usually the vendor is doing their own viewings. So when you see properties that come in the market with these kind of companies, there's more smaller ones as well. I just can't remember the smaller ones, their names, but there's ones like that do market some of these properties. So when you see one comes across like that, you know you're going to be doing a viewing with the vendor. Also, you can play the trick as well of acting as very busy. You can't do between working hours, so 9 to 5, whatever. So the estate agents, obviously they work 9 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever it is. And if you say, look, I can only do a viewing at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. in the evening because I'm so busy, any opportunity we can arrange this, they're likely they're going to speak to the vendor, the owner, and say, look, who can we get to come out to this viewing? And they might say, you know what, I'll just have to do it myself because I can't get anybody else, or whatever, or they can't do it on the behalf of the vendor. And that's how you get in front of the vendor. So again, that's another trick.
Thanks so much for that. Again, another question, assuming that the vendor, because they have gone through an estate agent, they'll still need to pay the estate agent their commission. So how do you circumvent that if you're going to be making a deal directly with them?
No. So and when you're doing a deal with a vendor, it doesn't mean they're not gonna pay the estate agent's fees. You're just increase the opportunity to be liked by the vendor. This way, all you're trying to do with being in front of the vendor is to literally get them to like you and feel like you're credible to do the deal, can close on the deal, and that's why they want to say, okay, we'll accept your offer based on what you just told us. So they're still going to pay their estate agent, because obviously it's come from an estate agent, so they're still going to pay that estate agent fee. Obviously, if you meet them direct to vendor yourself through other means where it doesn't come from an agent, then obviously they don't pay any fees. So again, you can kind of reflect that on the price as well that you offer. Say, look, you haven't got any fees to pay for, so this is my offer.
You haven't mentioned anything to do with maybe buying a property on auction. Would you consider that? And if not, what are your reasons?
I have never bought an auction, so can't really talk about auction, but I can talk about my experience of being in auction rooms. My experience of being in auction rooms has been that properties that you generally go in those rooms, usually, if it's a big auctioneer, they usually go way above the odds of what you're probably willing to pay. Because think about it as well, when you're in these auction rooms, you've got all types of investors in that room. You've got the investor who wants to do BRR, is borrowing money from an investor, and therefore needs to get the sweet deal, which is the best price possible. So below market value, what people like to say, to fit in all their margins, their cost of refurb, their cost of interest they're paying their investors to make deals stack for them. Whereas you've got some investors who've got their own capital, don't need no bank lending, don't need no nothing. They can fund the deal themselves. They haven't got cost of finance, to put it simple, and therefore can pay a bit more than what you can pay as an investor. You've also got the builder investor who wants to buy a project to get his team, his in-house team, to do a project. And again, they can pay a bit above of the odds than you're willing to pay, because they know the material cost is all they're paying. Labor is on them, it's part of the business anyways. So you're up against a good range of competition. So it's very hard to do deals in those rooms. I think the only chances you can kind of do a deal or sneak one through auctions is where maybe it's a quiet auction, it's not as busy that month for whatever reason, and you go in and you get a good one, there's not much competition. Or just ones that got legal issues and you can know how to solve those legal issues, and therefore you're one of the few people that can do that type of deal, so it's not open to the entire market. Does that make sense? So those type of deals are, or like structurally really bad issues, like, and people want to walk away, like the average person will want to deal with that. And that's where the opportunity really comes in auction. So legal issues, structural issues, things that are adverse, that a regular person can't just deal with. And that's where maybe you can kind of get a sweet deal on those, and potentially those even sell in the room because nobody's interested in doing those deals because it's too much headache. But someone that's well informed, well equipped, can go in and make those margins, those profit margins.
Apart from mybuilders.com, where do you normally source like the repeatable builders, or have you now got your own portfolio of builders that you now default to?
Yeah, so good question. I currently, obviously, I stick with the team that I have at the moment, but to start off with, I got recommendations. Again, another great way to find builders are through letting agents. So letting agents, think of it this way, they work for a lot of landlords who potentially have build teams, especially if they're renovating, doing BRR strategies, and potentially have met the build team at some point in time. So they know who's done their works on a certain property, and therefore can tell you or can recommend builders to you. Obviously, I always say take that with a pinch of salt. Everybody's taste is different. You need to go away and look at this for yourself and say, okay, is this something I'm happy with? Am I happy with this finish? Do I like the builders? Do I like the relationship we can have potentially? So you want to get a narrowed list down of people that you can kind of work with, but you have to still do your own due diligence on them to make sure they're the right fit for yourself. But generally speaking, yeah, through or a smart way is through a letting agent, or speak to investors in the areas, try and get some recommendations from them to see who to avoid even, or who to potentially go with. But generally speaking, investors who have got a team aren't really going to share their build team easily like that unless they know they haven't got any projects left with them. If they've got a couple of projects in the pipeline, they don't want their build team doing projects with other people simply because they plan to use them themselves. So it's a bit of a hard one in that sense. But another way in is what I've said in the past, speaking to lettings agents to get an idea of what build teams they know in the area that have done work for other landlords.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the questions, Slingy. I'm conscious that we are running out of time now. So usually this session will go from 5:30 up until 7. And I'm just going to say, Tabo was already mentioned in the chat as well. If any of you guys are not in the community, feel free just to message me. I've just dropped my phone number on the group or on the chat now. Feel free to message me and we're happy to just get you involved in the group. There's only one more question, Alfred, that I'm just going to ask. Sorry for all the other questions that haven't been asked, guys. I've got a question from Silas. And Silas is asking if there's a minimum. What is the minimum and maximum amount of money one can lend, and over what period with the interest paid? Is there a minimum or maximum?
So yes. Now, obviously, because I've been doing this for a while now, so I try and set a criteria to kind of filter out some certain people as well. I'm obviously never going to say no to money, but ideally, I think even now, like 30K is what I'd say. But like, it just depends in terms of what the person is looking for. Are they investing the money on a short term, long term? Because I can take 20 grand on a short term basis. Because I know it's not, I wouldn't take like 100 grand and do like a 6-month loan, because I just know I probably would want to keep that a bit longer if possible. And the returns will vary based on the amount borrowed versus the form of repayment. So am I paying the interest monthly, or am I paying it at the end of the term? And then also finally the duration of the loan as well. But generally speaking, it's the rate will be around between 6 to 10% per annum is where the interest rate would be, regardless of whatever the structure is.
Okay. I hope that clarifies that, Silas. So for any of you guys who are looking to lend any money to Alfred, please feel free just to contact him on the details here. That's the vague information on what that looks like. If you want any more detail based on how much money you've got. So unfortunately, if you've got a $5, he can't help you. So, feel free to contact Alfred, and I know for a fact he'll be able to help you out in terms of the lending element of it. So Alfred, on behalf of everyone on the Zim Property Investors, appreciate your time, man. This is really, really good.
Thank you.
I always enjoy these. Like I said, I'm happy to talk all the time. So me turning up and talking is the easiest way I can do in this world. Honestly, I could do this for days.
Awesome. I'll give you a heads up. We're definitely going to be calling you back at some point.
Cool, no worries. Like, we could do a panel Q&A one day. I don't know, like a few people. Obviously, this is all my perspective, guys. So as well, this is just my perspective, what's worked for me, what I've seen work. There's other people that do things slightly different and get better results other ways as well. So it's kind of good to kind of see as well and learn what works best for you. Not everything that I said might work for you. So I think take that as well with a pinch of salt, I'd say. But yeah, if you guys ever do a panel, whatever, people come on, I'm happy to do a Q&A session one day.
Definitely give you a shout on that one. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for the guys that have managed to join here. Much appreciated. And for all the guys that are watching on our YouTube channel, if you need anything, please feel free to reach out, and we will see each other again next month. So for the guys that I hear